Thank you. And, there should be a waiting room.
I know it had a. yeah.
Oh, yeah, see the
We
top
were there
admit.
before.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. So,
I just need.
What's that?
Button right
oh,
now.
okay.
I'm just waiting.
Like
so I
millions
can-
years ago.
Diane's sister has.
Okay, so there's George.
Do I have to let him in?
Looks like he's in.
Okay.
6 months a year.
Yeah,
Hey, George,
Devastated.
and Captiva, so.
Yeah.
can you hear us? Just not.
It says he can't, okay, and then can you admit me? Perfect.
Okay.
Now he should be able to hear you.
George.
You hear us, George? We can't hear you. You must be muted.
Yeah.
Unmute yourself.
There we go. Okay, good.
All right.
Are you sick?
No, do I look it?
God, you're all good.
No, too much sun, too much fun. That'll
Too
do
much
that.
sun. There is way too much sun in this place, way too much sun. But
Okay,
I'm
well-
coming home. I'm coming home soon, so I'll bring it with me.
No
Yeah,
rush.
good. Yeah, please do.
No
All
rush.
right.
Where
is everybody?
Well, yeah, we're missing, what, two
Bobby
people?
and,
Yeah.
Warren.
Bobby,
Yeah. Bobby and Warren.
yeah, and then Greta's supposed to be here as well.
Okay.
But we have a quorum, so I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. It is 7:02. First of all, any adjustments to the agenda? Oh, yeah, okay, Pat had a request specifically for next meeting and maybe in the future, if we could possibly do these meetings earlier. And we did talk about it at our reorganization last month. Nobody requested a change, but I'll put that up right now. Are people in favor of starting earlier, say at 6 o'clock?
I would be in favor of that. I would second that motion.
Well, I
You
haven't made
didn't
a
make
motion yet.
You didn't make a motion.
He can make motions.
I would make a motion to start our meetings at 6 o'clock.
I would second that.
Uh,
The
and-
problem is the two people.
The
who
two
are
people
most
that aren't
affected
here
by
would
it aren't
probably,
here.
but, yeah.
Could I have, can amend the motion? I just seconded it. I was gonna suggest
Well,
an option, maybe just for the next meeting, could we?
you know, we could, start the next meeting at 6 to accommodate Pat, and at that meeting, assuming everybody's here,
see
we
what they
could,
have to say?
we could
Yeah.
decide whether or not we wanted
Yeah,
to
that sounds
continue at
good.
6. Okay, so I'll entertain a motion for
Make a
next meeting.
motion to start next week's meeting or next month's meeting at 6 o'clock and then review that. Maybe next week to begin all meetings at 6.
You mean next
Upon
month.
discussion, next,
Yes.
yeah, next one.
Okay, so I have a motion
Second,
and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
I,
Okay, next meeting will start at 6 o'clock. I assume there's no further adjustments to the agenda. Okay, under reorganization, just a quick follow-up. And it's about the open meeting law training. We got the email from Corinne. And then today you probably saw the email from Catherine that there's gonna
I didn't.
Northern
Oh,
yeah, the Regional Planning Commission is holding a training session, actually a week from today at 6 o'clock. And I think we all got the email. If not, let me know or let Danielle.
I
know.
haven't looked at emails today or
Yeah.
this afternoon, so. I
It should be.
don't-
So, so that is, that's probably the best option. And
okay.
then,
And we have to do that every 2 years.
the chair has to do it every year, other folks, every 3 years. But we've said that anybody that's, just been elected or reelected
Oh,
has to do it.
re-elected.
So that's
Me.
you and Pat, and actually Warren, who's not here,
Yeah.
and me as chair, so.
I'm sorry, who was that email from? Was it from Corinne?
No, it's from, Catherine Dimitrick.
I thought it was from Luke.
yes.
Oh, was it Luke? Okay, all right. Yeah, could you forward that to Pat, just so,
Just to make sure.
yeah, make sure she's got
Oh,
it.
no,
It's,
no, I didn't, I got something else from him, but not that.
okay. So, yeah, it's Catherine that'll do it. She does it every year, does a very good job. It doesn't take but half hour, 45 minutes.
Got it. All right, I'll forward it to you.
And if for whatever reason you're unable to make that, there will be a recording of it afterwards that you can view. And
No.
no, I won't be asking for sworn affidavits that you all did it, but we're just do it on the honor system, expect that everybody will follow through with that.
What
And
time is that meeting? start?
6 o'clock,
And that's a week from today.
week from today, yeah.
And yeah, that-
But if you look at the email Corinne sent,
Oh,
which is part of our packet, there is a couple of other opportunities on there as well, so.
And I just wanted to mention, she said she would have it here if anyone wanted to attend in person, but you can attend on Zoom.
Okay,
But if you want to be here, you can.
great way to socialize, right?
wouldn't that be fun?
Yeah,
Uh,
okay, so that's the only reason that item was on there. Okay, approval of minutes.
I move to approve the minutes of last March meeting.
Second,
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Well, all those in favor?
aye.
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 Greta, your timing is impeccable.
Good, sorry to be a few minutes late.
Andy, before we turn over to, I wanted to ask a clarification. I don't know if it was in the minutes or not. So when we reorganized the last meeting, do you still continue as the assistant ZA? Did we talk about that?
We didn't talk about it, but yes, I am. That hasn't changed.
Okay, good. I was hoping that wouldn't change. That's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Okay, so any public comments? We don't have any members of the general public here, so I'm going to assume not. So visitors, Greta Brunswick, Northwest Regional Planning Commission, welcome. Great to have you here. And I'm not sure if you've met all of us. We're actually missing 2 members tonight. I'll let you start, George.
George Salambier, I'm in Florida right now, Greta.
Hi.
How are you? And I think we've met before, so this is my second term on the planning commission.
Great, nice to see you again.
Yep.
David Berenberg, second term. So,
Pat Cox Sainsbury first.
Mike Curtis.
Hi.
And we know each other.
All right.
Okay, on that note, Greta, we will turn things over to you. And just to recap, you requested to be here to talk about the future land use maps. And we decided to take advantage of your presence here, and we've added a few more items afterwards, which I think you've seen, so.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, so I'll let you take over.
Have any of you seen the Act 181 presentation yet?
Yes, I
Okay.
have. I may be the only one, yeah.
Because I can either do a PowerPoint and I can just log into the Zoom and share my screen that way, or I can just talk and I can reference some handouts and
Um,
maps. Does anyone have a preference?
Do you have the ability to share a screen if she wants? I think I'd just soon
If you share your screen, George can still listen and see.
Mhm.
Okay,
That's, yeah, that he would.
That'd be
able to
better.
do that.
That'd
Yeah,
be better to
right.
do the,
Right.
okay. My only challenge with that, I was trying to figure out where to plug my laptop. Oh, because that's what I would need to do, right?
There's a plug over here in the wall and there's might be one that's empty over there.
Yeah, you can-
Or I could sit over there.
Yeah.
Either way. Why don't I do that?
yeah, why don't you just sit right there, Greta?
Meantime, I'll give you some handouts. You can have something.
Oh, wonderful. And they're in full living color.
Imagine.
it's like 2 pages.
We got plenty of copies, I know we.
Yeah, sorry, there's
That's okay.
X. So there's, it's actually 3 things you're getting. This is the last one.
And pass one around to David.
Oh, what else happened?
Mike,
Oh, I'm sorry.
okay.
So what you are looking at here, is the one that's stapled, that's a few pages long, is kind of is an overview of the Act 181 changes related to the Northwest Regional Plan update and the way the Northwest Regional Plan and the future land use map in particular are relate to state designation programming and Act 250 jurisdiction. So this handout gives a broad overview and then has an in-depth focus on each one of those sort of components. So we've got the future land use mapping in itself, and then the state designation program. And on the last page on the back is the Act 250 jurisdiction. And then the sort of loose one is the housing targets, which is also something that the Regional Planning Commission is required to do. We're given a regional housing target by the state, which is intended to be a goal for the amount of housing units that we need to have a healthy housing economy and that serves the needs of our community. As we all know, we have a shortage right now. And so we are municipalizing or disaggregating that target to municipalities so that each municipality has their own share of that target to strive for. And then the last piece is the draft future land use map for the town of North Hero.
Is that fair?
That's,
we
Did you
don't-
not get that one?
oh,
You
I
that
didn't get
one.
it. Yeah, that's my bad. I
Sorry.
didn't.
Take one, pass one.
Would you be able just to collect a copy, a hard copy for me?
Look at it here, George. There.
Yes, George, we will,
All right, that'd be great. Thank you.
To the North Hero town.
Oh, I sent you the link.
I need the Wi-Fi though.
Oh, it's on the other side of that last thing.
North Hero 1, 2, 3. No.
yeah, capital N, capital H.
A lot of security.
Not as secure, yeah. We could have just used, 4, 5, 6.
And you
That's
sent me
right.
the link via email.
So what do you want me to do with this, George? Just give it to Danielle to hand it to you next month?
Yeah, I'll be back in about a week and a half, so I'll stop by, Danielle, when you're in.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Yes, I did, thank you.
Mhm.
I didn't get one from Corinne.
It's trying to share. I'll have to double check and make sure you guys are on the planning commission.
When did she send it out today?
So as I was saying, the map is the draft future land use map for the town of North Hero. And so we as a state now have set future land use areas that are consistent across all regions. And there's 3 different rural districts. And the being rural conservation, rural agricultural forestry, and rural general. So you can see those, the tan, and then the 2 different shades of green. And then and then there are several other districts that aren't showing up on the map because they are not in North Hero. But there is a village center in North Hero and the opportunity for a village area that could surround the village center. And so that's something that we're going to want to talk about tonight is it appropriate to have a village area that surrounds the village center? So the village center is the same as the state. Okay, so right now it currently reflects the boundary of your existing designated village center. We now have the opportunity to map expanded boundaries or new centers as appropriate. on the future land use map. And when those maps are approved by the new land use review board, they will automatically become designated village centers. They will receive that designation when the regional land use map is adopted. So right now, you know, we didn't propose any change to that center as it's currently designated because it kind of matched your zoning district, I believe.
Mhm.
And one of the things that it was not clear to us was whether you were actually planning for any level of housing growth around that village center.
It doesn't match.
Because the new opportunity here is that in addition to a village center, every town that has a center has the opportunity to have a neighborhood designation around that center. And so historically, the neighborhood designation program, it does exist, but the bar to get in is pretty high. It's a pretty substantive application and takes some level of sophistication to do. So there's not that many neighborhoods in the smaller rural villages. And now every single designated village center has the opportunity to have that neighborhood around it if they're planning for housing development in that area. So as a neighborhood, you would get similar types of benefits as designated village centers, like tax credits. But in addition, you would also have the opportunity to opt in for housing Act 250 exemptions, and I'll get into that more. But right now, you have there's an interim Act 250 exemption in place in the town of North Hero that is within that quarter-mile red line buffer around your designated area. So right now, a housing project that's 50 units or less on 10 acres or less within that red line would have the opportunity to be exempt from Act 250 unless it was sort of already complicated from an existing, you know, if it was already an Act 250 permit or project, then that would be an issue, but like a new project would be exempt. So you have the opportunity of considering whether or not you want to continue that housing exemption. And it is just for housing projects 50 units or less on 10 acres or less.
Can we possibly get that up on the,
Yeah.
So
So
that
you can
George
see
can-
it. Sorry, I started talking because I was not
do
wanting
that,
to.
George?
I want
Yep.
to see,
Yeah, I'm gonna share.
who owns that land right there?
Which one, the green or the,
No, right off the village centers. I don't know if there's a large plot of land. that-
Which one are you
Carl
looking
owns some of that property.
No, that's the green part of the
No,
beige.
the beige.
That is Cantrell's.
And Carl's.
They're the ones with the little cabins down there.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
okay.
I believe that's theirs. I think Carl's must be the one right next to it. Oh, no, I don't know.
God, I didn't know that land goes back that far.
Yeah.
Carl and Tracy's, this.
No,
that right there?
Carl's and Tracy's is right next to it, I believe.
Yeah, I think you're right, David. I think it's the Cantrells.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is.
I'm almost in. Sorry for that.
Yeah.
Then Heiss is the green area.
And Horton probably, right?
No, Harkin doesn't own any of that. He owns just a little piece. right?
Yeah, but he comes before Heist, doesn't he?
He does?
I should be
Phil? You mean Phil?
Yeah.
leading now.
No, I think he's over here.
Oh, there you go.
I think he's over here. And then I think.
Recording in progress.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is nice.
Oh, okay. I was thinking of the one next to him before Savage. Creek.
It's 720.
Yeah.
Can-
Okay.
Oh, great.
When you said tax credits, does the present owner receive a tax credit for putting it into the neighborhood? Or upon development of that land?
So, yeah. The tax
Actually,
credit would be for improvements to income generating properties. Or new housing developments.
Mhm.
Um. So. So there would have to be something new that's happening. Did I unshare? No.
No,
Okay.
you're
It's okay.
there.
It's
Can
up
you,
there.
yeah, okay, you got your presentation. Can you, is it possible to put this up there? Use
Have
this
it in the
map. Yeah, okay,
presentation.
yep. So George can see it.
So here's
Yeah,
just the village center that we were talking about.
Yeah.
And so you can see our conservation, our rural conservation is the dark green. The rural general is the tan, and the agricultural forestry is that's the lighter green. Right now along the shoreline, flood hazard is showing up. And the flood hazard district is one of the areas that is used to determine where the conservation district should be. So you can see a green area on the shoreline there. We are looking right now at dense shoreline development and determining where, making sure that certain dense shoreline areas are, back from the flood hazard, are rural as opposed to conservation or ag forestry. So that's something that we're working on refining right now. But so in North Hero, aside from just generally taking a look at the agricultural and forestry district, the rural conservation, the rural general, we're focusing on these concentrated centers. Is North Hero Village where you're currently zoned right now? That's the only place that you're planning for like a village area. So confirming that there shouldn't be any other village areas. You certainly haven't identified one in your local plan, so I'm assuming the answer is no, it's just here. Second, is it appropriate to have a village area that would surround the village center? One of the issues that we may feel comfortable if that was a direction that you wanted to go doing that. But one of the things that we are supposed to look at in our guidance and doing this mapping is the municipality planning for it. And that's one thing that, seems to be missing on your future land use map and your municipal plan or your zoning right now is you're not planning for another area that is, a higher density housing area around your village. So that's one thing we wanted to check in tonight. So that's why in most towns, I'm coming with a village area mapped around their center as a draft. And we didn't draft that for the reasons I just stated.
well, I got just a couple of quick comments while we're on that. Number one, our village area, and it's a really nice village, but it's not very pedestrian friendly. And I think, as far as
It's only
putting,
got one street.
Yeah, exactly, and no sidewalks, so, yeah, I don't know how appropriate it is to think about, dense development around the outside of the, village district.
Are there any other hamlet areas in the town that would have at their center, a civic commercial housing cluster?
Off the top of my head, no, the only thing that would even come close, in my opinion, would be, over just by the bridge going over to
The marina
Albert,
there.
The
that-
harbor
Yeah.
side market. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
Harborside
commercial.
Market,
There's
that
a
area
yeah,
maybe,
There's the boatyard,
yeah. There's a
But-
marina and
but
the
then it's
store there.
surrounded by agricultural fields behind it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That would be,
This is where the center is.
yeah,
Yeah, this is
exactly.
the center, truly, for
Yes.
sure.
And, yeah, that's
And-
never gonna
and
change.
As far as housing and development goes in that area.
The opportunity to expand this area would have to be going that way.
Yes.
Right,
And you'd have to get permission from the big landowners and
Yeah,
right.
I
Well-
just don't see it happening.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, you know, it's in the rural district, so we've got to face with a 3 acre minimum lot size, so that kind of restricts what you can do as well, unless that,
Well,
that got
unless the
changed.
neighborhood
Right.
Yeah, right,
can-
So,
yeah.
so anyhow, I think right now, because that planning doesn't exist locally, this is what we're gonna continue with.
Yeah.
If there are any adjustments you wanna make to the center boundary, for example, following parcel lines there in the back, on the western side of it, we'll do that for sure. It looks like we didn't even adjust the existing boundary at all to follow the lines there, but it's cutting that back
Mhm.
small parcel off there, and I think we'll add that in at least
Okay,
so
yep.
that you can have that full parcel be there.
Sure.
But you know, looking ahead to the future, I think that there could be opportunity to expand to the west with property owner support, obviously.
Mhm. Yep.
So, I think that might be, something that, the planning commission may wanna
Yeah.
engage with their neighbors on. I don't know.
So you're saying,
Brett,
Yes.
I'm glad you're bringing this up because we're about ready, probably starting next month or the month after, revisiting our town plan, because it really should be driven by the town plan
Correct.
and,
Yep.
and the process within that to see whether or not that's a feasible, you know, and the community really, whether or not they really want to pursue that kind of
Mhm.
level of development. But I think
Yeah.
this is good timing for us because I think we should have a discussion about it within our planning commission and then broadly to the community to bring them into it. Because it could be north of the village, just what Andy was saying, or Harbor Side Fire Station area.
Yep.
Let me ask you this, because in this discussion, we also have to consider the potential for real transformative change where school districts are going to be located and where schools are going to be located. And that's going to be really important in our thinking about development for the purpose of actually growing our schools. Because our size is diminishing and, you know, there's real potential for a lot of our rural villages, including North Hero, not to have a school.
George, you're running a little behind. They
Yeah.
just voted to close the North Hero School last week. So.
That's gonna be administrative office.
Administrative offices only, students will all go down to Grand Isle starting next school year.
I didn't know that. So that,
Yeah, just happened.
Just happened.
oh boy. All right.
Yeah.
So that
Which I think-
impacts their thinking about this whole,
Sure.
it should impact.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
But
All right.
you're bringing up the town plan is well timed, George, because that's on the agenda. We're gonna start talking about that now and hopefully coming up with a schedule moving forward on that, so,
Good. Thank you.
yep.
So let me just figure out if there's a few other things I want to highlight. One thing that I'll talk about is just, you know, Act 181. It was an immense piece of legislation that was adopted last session. And there were one thing that it did do is bring 4 different planning systems together with this new planning and regulatory framework that I'm sort of talking about here with the regional plan at the kind of backbone.
Mhm.
So it really elevates regional planning in a way that it has never done before, and it makes it a little bit more relevant. And also, as part of that process, coordinates the statewide regional planning at a statewide level in a way that it hasn't been coordinated quite so much, in the sense that before, when you put together all of our regional land use maps, they didn't match, right? And now they will. And so we kind of have a state future land use map in the same way that you have one for your town. And then it also, I think properly so, directs that regional planning, which stems from municipal planning. At all of these meetings, we're going around and doing this regional planning with our municipalities. It's not just, it's regional planning with municipalities. But that is then directing state investments through the state designation program, right? So the regional and local planning is directing those designation locations and then the investments that are made available there through the designation program. And then similarly, instead of Act 250 jurisdiction that is entirely based on the size of a project and the type of a project, it is now in certain areas place-based designation. So based on the regional and local planning, the areas that are planned from growth are now eligible for these exemptions. So it's tying some permit relief and state investments through tax credits and other benefits to those areas that are planned for growth, to smart growth. So I just wanted to give that little bit of framework because it's pretty exciting. The state,
Mhm.
as maybe you know, had been working on Act 250 reform for many years. And so this was the resulting compromise of those discussions. Let's see, what else do I want to highlight here? I'm not gonna go through it this
I know
entire
one thing I want
presentation.
you to highlight.
The targets,
Housing
okay, we'll
targets,
get to the
yeah.
targets. One thing I will know that, note that with the state designation, you no longer need to apply for designation or renewal. That's entirely done through the regional plan process now. Our regional plans have to go through a similar approval process that your local plans do now, and that's done by the Land Use Review Board. That was not something that happened, until this new legislation. Our regional plans were not approved in that way. As part of that approval, the land use map is something that will be specifically approved. That's when upon approval, the state designations are automatic, along with the housing exemption that you can opt into if you have a village area. So once you're a designated village, right now, the way that the legislation is written, if you're an existing designated center, like now North Hero is, you're gonna come in at step 2, which is an intermediate growing village, and it's kind of the status quo in terms of the types of benefits that you get, so it's gonna feel really similar. But there are a lot of new villages that are being added as part of statewide, as part of this process, and if you're a new village and haven't been already part of the program before, you're gonna come in at step 1. And then the downtown programs are the step 3. But there's these different steps that you can work through, and to advance from step 2 to 3 or 1 to 2, that's an application that the municipality does, similar to before, where they apply to the Community Investment Board to advance. And the advancing through the steps really just gets you additional benefits, but the designation boundary is set by the regional plan. And so neighborhoods so right now, there used to be like 5 designations, like growth centers and neighborhood designation area, new town centers. Now there's just centers and neighborhoods. That's it. Okay.
Just one last question. You've outlined an area that could be expanded on the village. How long is that good for? And I'm just thinking, just to even come to a conclusion as to whether there would be an expanded neighborhood there, we'd have to go through again. Well, at least a new planning
Right.
process, new town plan where people bought in,
Right.
because the select board isn't gonna.
Right.
approve it.
Right, and so this time around, since you don't have that local planning, you're not gonna have a village area, right?
Okay,
Our plan is,
you mean a village neighborhood?
it's called a village area,
Oh, okay. Well,
but
these-
sorry, you're right, it's called a neighborhood designation.
I don't know.
The future land use
Yeah,
category is a
yeah.
village
Yeah,
area.
I just want to let you know.
It's
I
a
was
neighborhood
paying
designation, so
attention.
you're not gonna have a neighborhood designation, you're not gonna have a village area, future
Mhm.
land use category. In order to be eligible for the neighborhood designation, you need to have the village area, future land use category mapped. So the next time we touch our plan, it's gonna be 8 years from when it's adopted or approved. That's the cycle, but changes can be made, or requested changes just to the future land use map. So there is a process for doing that. If, for example, after your next municipal plan update, you made some changes, decided you wanted an area for growth around your village that was adopted, you could then request, you know, and you wanted to go and have that neighborhood designation be approved, then you could request a map amendment for the regional, from the Regional Planning Commission.
Okay, on that subject, Greta, so our current municipal plan was enacted in 2020, so we've got until 28. But I think it's kind of the consensus on the planning commission. We'd like to start later on this year, updating the town plan. So I guess the question is, there's nothing that says we have to wait the 8 years, correct? We can we start
You
on
could
a whole
start
new
as-
town
yes,
plan
you could.
earlier than that?
Sure.
Okay, yeah, then I think that's kind of where we're at right now, so.
Yeah. Okay. I sort of skipped over this Act 250, but I just wanted, if anyone has any questions on the different types of Act 250 jurisdiction that are made available now. There's tier 1, which is the areas that are eligible for the exemption. You don't have any areas that are going to be eligible for a tier 1 type exemption.
Mhm.
I was talking about tier 1B, if you had the village area mapped on the future land use map, that's the 50 units or less on 10 acres or less. So in North Hero with the current draft map, it would be kind of like the status quo Act 250 on tier 2. Eventually, there will be a tier 3, but that is something that the Land Use Review Board is doing through rulemaking. It does not mirror our conservation district. That's something we have to point out, but it is going to be a higher level of Act 250 standards for certain types of resource lands. So. Let's see,
You haven't talked about the target.
I'm getting to the target.
Yeah.
All right, I'll move to the target. So there is we right now, we're really involved in our regional plan update, and that we do have an engagement process that I just skipped over those slides, but let me know if you want to know more about that. In the interest of time, we'll move into the targets. So this is methodology. Let's skip to what our targets are for North Hero. So in the region, so we have two different targets. We have a 2030 target and a 2050 target, and these are counted from 2025. The 2030 target is really intended to sort of normalize the market. Right now, we're based on the data analysis and we have an extreme housing shortage. We're in a housing crisis. There's not enough housing to meet the needs of our population, which is driving prices. There's inflation and other, factors that are contributing to the state of the market right now. But we all know that we need more housing, and the 2030 target is intended to sort of bring us up to the level of homes that we need to, so that we don't have a shortage anymore. So in the region, by 2030, we need over 2,000 homes. That's a lot.
When you say the region,
The region total, Franklin and Grand Isle.
Okay.
Yeah, so these are all regional targets. So that breaks down based on our methodology to 53 to 80 homes by 2030 in North Hero. So that's your share.
Out of how many homes we have now?
I can't read that,
Additional.
let's see,
Right,
housing
right.
units in 2020 was what, 950?
951.
And then 2024 is 97, so we gained 21 homes in 4 years.
that doesn't
Wait.
seem to
Wait.
gel with other reports coming out from regional planning that's showing that we've got about 17 to 19 new homes built on an annual basis.
Hmm.
I mean, the target would be achievable if we could continue.
Yeah, but I don't think we're even close to that. I mean, how many building permits have you issued in the past year, Danielle, for new housing?
17.
No. Yeah.
So, but how many homes do we have? Because I was looking, how many?
Well, we
homes
can
do you-
believe that.
I
We
can't
have
see.
972 housing
Not-
units.
So, but those are seasonal and
That's-
year round. They're not,
These
they're
are
not all
the-
year round.
these are year round.
Year
Or,
round.
No, that that
Well,
doesn't
these
jive
are-
with yours.
well,
That census
they
data.
are, so they are the housing units that are counted as year rounds.
Oh, really?
primary.
Even though they
dwellings.
might be
Oh, they're not,
rented out
yeah.
seasonally?
Right,
Yeah, okay.
right.
Or it could be someone's just buying it to be here during the summer.
Correct.
Yes.
It doesn't factor in how people are using the housing, but they're not, what they aren't counting is those units that can truly only be occupied on a seasonal
That's-
basis,
yeah,
because
that's what
there's some
I'm
sort of limitation physically that,
Yeah,
Right.
okay.
Yeah,
whether it's septic or they aren't winterized or
Correct.
something along those
right.
lines.
So that doesn't really show that.
No.
So the increase that you're talking about is on top of those homes too. It
The-
would include those homes as well.
No, it would not include true homes that can only be occupied on a seasonal basis.
But
This,
some of those homes could be.
But.
They could be
They
converted.
could be
Yeah,
converted.
Yeah,
Right.
but we don't, do we know exactly how many could be converted? I'm just wondering about, trying to understand if this is if the growth target makes a lot of sense on the different
It doesn't
dimensions.
seem like it does.
Yeah, I was thinking about just, what we have and how many.
Yeah.
The other part too is if you issue a building permit and a demo at the same time, it doesn't count as a new housing start.
yeah,
Even though it.
but again,
Am I correct on that? I thought I saw that in one of the
Well-
reports I read out of.
well, I think that you're not adding, right, you're taking away unit and you're adding unit. so
yeah,
it's-
so you're
it's-
zeroing out.
But
You're
if you're
not.
taking away a seasonal. unit
Right.
And putting up a permanent.
That-
unit,
that
That's
one,
that's a different
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah,
You're saying that would count,
Correct.
yeah.
yeah.
Oh, so
Yeah,
if
You're
a,
saying it would
if a
count.
seasonal camp is demolished and a new
Convert.
home is built. that's
Year-round
considered
home.
Yeah, that would,
year-round
yeah,
home, no matter what
yeah.
the intention is.
Correct.
Okay,
But again, just to put it in perspective, so from 20 to 24, we had 21
Right. And
units.
so, this is partly, that
That's
there was
the
a
region.
2020 census count
Yeah.
of 951, and then Luke, the current housing units as of 1/1/2024 are based on the data that a planner at NRPC, Luke Slomba, has been collecting annually.
Yeah.
So that's building permit data on top of the
Yeah.
2020 census. So that is a fair amount of
Yeah,
of new units reflected there. But again, so this additional 53 to 80 that's needed would start this year, 2025 to 2030. And, so this would in all across the region for every single municipality, this target seems large.
mhm.
Right? It's not, we need more homes than our market is building right now. And that's just a reality of it. And I think this is a planning tool. It's not a mandate. There's no consequences for not meeting it. But I think that it's important to put numbers down on paper to understand
Mhm.
and what does this housing crisis mean and what would need to happen to really solve it. And all of these different pieces of what we're talking about tonight in terms of future land use mapping, directing in state investments through tax credits, permit relief are all intended to incentivize more housing development in smart growth areas. And so I think that's how this number ties in, is that, you want to look at where is our housing needed? Are we planning for the amount of housing that's needed? What can we do that we have control of to think about the amount of housing that is needed by our community, and where should it go?
But isn't an aggressive target, doesn't that affect how you think about land use? I mean, does that drive you to then make changes to how you use the land?
Well, right now in North Hero, I would say, yeah, like where should this, where do you want to develop? Are there areas that should it be? Like right now, the rural general area is intended to be sort of that rural residential that's not primary agricultural. It's not primarily, used for forestry. It's not an important conservation resource area like wetland or floodplain. So right now, the rural general areas, I think, are where you would look to try to, infill more housing. But is that where you want to see it? And are there other ways that would potentially help create I guess nodes of development that might be more connected to services. North Hero is unique, though.
Mhm.
It's, you know, it doesn't, the way we talk about smart growth planning in other towns
Mhm.
doesn't exactly fit the same way
Right.
in North Hero.
Yeah. There's a
So,
lot of restrictions,
Yeah,
right?
so,
Well, it's not necessarily, it's change, it's who demands housing in
Right,
North Hero.
right, right. Who can
And
afford?
what
housing?
market,
Right.
market forces
Right,
are trending negative right now, and I'd say tariffs and the Canadian border
right,
would have more of an impact on North Hero. Simply because we've got an awful lot of Canadians who own homes here. And like South Florida, if they decide to just sell,
mm,
yeah. I mean, so,
it could be opportunities
Right.
for, it'd be nice to have families come in.
it would, yeah,
Maybe we could get the school reopened.
reopen, yeah.
so when you look purely at like, when I'm looking at parcelization, I don't have units here, but you know, there's like a large rural general area up here that looks pretty parcelized. So when I'm looking at parcelization, I'm looking at really like the density of development there, like, and then also down in the southern area, as well. And then you have one in the center of the town, sort of near the village center. You know, but if those are entire, like, if you were to target more residential development there, what would that look like? Is that appropriate? Are there ways to think about improving walkability? But that really involves walking to what, right? Like,
Yeah.
what are we walking? Are you walking to recreation? Are you walking to something commercial, an amenity? So, and if there's no commercial or civic uses planned for those areas, then they really are just gonna remain rural general.
Yeah.
And I think because you already have the area, the rural general that's north of the center there, maybe there's opportunity there, I don't know, but that's like what we talked about before.
Mhm.
But that would mean that you would have, you know, potential for encouraging new development in a location that would be potentially walkable, or certainly within a short distance to the services and amenities of North Hero Village. But beyond that, beyond potentially identifying an area like that, you're going to, it seems, continue to have that development that is sort of scattered throughout the town based on septic availability.
Yep.
And you know, certainly people are drawn here to live in this sort of unique island
Mhm.
environment, the lake. They are, whatever their situation is, they either don't need to commute or
Exactly.
or they're
Yeah.
commuting a very long distance.
Yeah.
right.
So,
Just, yeah, one comment, because I went through this presentation, Catherine from the Regional Planning Commission was at the select board meeting a
Mhm.
couple weeks ago. She did point out that the target accessory dwelling units would count toward that
Towards that
target.
target.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that would be one way to
yes.
get toward the target without necessarily building new.
Mhm.
You know, build an apartment over your garage or whatever.
Yeah,
so-
all types of single unit dwellings. So we're
Yeah.
not talking, you know, it does not count the seasonal dwellings, the dwellings that are restricted to only be occupied seasonally based on a physical
Right.
sort of limitation.
Yeah,
But it does count duplexes, accessory dwelling units, any sort of small multi-unit dwelling. So, and that was also a change made by, the statute, was that duplexes needed to be allowed everywhere,
Mhm.
that single unit dwellings are.
Yep.
And accessory dwelling units were already something that was required to be allowed for any
Yep.
single unit doing. So,
I'm just looking at went into the town, what you put into the town report as to certificates of occupancy issued. And it doesn't match up with the
Well,
20 new.
you got, just keep in mind that if you put a shed up, you get
Yeah.
a certificate of
Maybe what we should be
occupancy.
doing is, for our planning purposes, breaking out actual ADUs and housing as opposed to putting a shed in.
Well, isn't that part of the data that the town gives to you folks to,
Yes.
so, yeah, we are providing that information to the Regional Planning Commission.
But we're not
Which is where
providing
these
it to this
numbers, well,
committee.
that's where these numbers are coming from, so.
I can though.
Yeah, I
Okay.
mean, it would be
That's-
pretty easy. Yeah,
For
yeah.
each 12
Yeah,
months.
now that we have the targets, it would be a good idea, I think, to keep better track of where we are moving forward.
All right, I can bring it to the next meeting.
Yeah,
So-
perfect, yeah.
One thing that I can share with you is I mentioned that 2024 number that was collected by my colleague Luke. We've had him create so he's got some GIS skills, and so he's created a housing dashboard for the region. And so this is tracking housing units by year from zoning permit data. So he collects it directly from the zoning administrators in all of the towns. He's currently collecting 2024 data. So from housing units in the region built from 2020 to 2023, there's 726. And then it's broken out by type. So most of them are single unit, but you can see the number of multi-unit versus mobile home versus the number that were demolished and the number of ADUs. And then you can see by town on the right, sort of seeing which towns might have more multi-unit development. You know, obviously in South Hero, that's number skewed by the fact that they just had the
Yes.
senior housing. So
Right,
that just looks a little different than it normally would there. But then you can zoom into the map and you, like, so for North Hero, there is a dot for every single, housing unit that, has been, issued in North Hero.
so those are new housing units in that time frame in North Hero,
Correct.
correct?
And I
Yeah,
guess I can go
Yeah.
up here and I can.
For the
click-
last, for 3 years,
yeah,
because
Yeah.
24 is not in there.
right.
24 is not in there yet. Yeah, so
Yeah.
3 years, 20 to 23.
Is this all on your website?
Yes, so this is accessed, if you go to nrpcvt.com
Uh-huh.
and then in services and programs down to housing. And then, it's right here on the right, NRPC Housing Dashboard. So this, the reason why we did this is exactly for the region you guys just brought up, was to be able to see how we're doing in making progress towards that housing target. And we are not close to our 2030 target. I mean, we haven't really started counting there yet, though. Again, it's from 25 to 2030 is that you're supposed to count that target, but we're not building as many homes per year as we would need to
Yeah.
meet the target.
And,
Um,
but so then what happens if we don't meet the target, despite our best efforts? I
You
mean,
know,
there's no punishment.
There's no
Yeah,
punishment.
yeah.
It's intended to be a tool so
Yeah,
that
yeah.
we can be more, I think, intentional in local planning, thinking about housing and what the amount of housing that we need and where it should go.
Okay.
But one of the things that I also like, is that you can see the number of units that are built, within designated centers. And so across the region, for the most part, you know, in North Hero is not excluded, you know, we're not seeing housing development in those areas.
Right.
Where's the zoom out?
It's a lack of developable land.
That's a problem.
Even the
yeah.
one that's in that town center, probably
Well,
illegally built.
I don't know, but I would say that large landowner that we were just looking at was one of the people who was in complaining to you, Daniel, that how could this house go up?
Oh, right, no, that's, yes.
The final piece, and then we'll move on, is that you can also look at property values. So this is just grand list. But you can sort of take a look at, you know, from when we're thinking about affordability.
What's happening? I'm just looking at current mortgage rates. Now, I'm just thinking about your targets and the impact of current mortgage rates and people being able to.
Yeah, that's
access
one of
money.
the,
I mean,
that's
it's
one
not
of
in
the-
your control.
no, yeah, I mean, that's one of
appreciate
the factors that's impacting
Right.
affordability and you know,
economic uncertainty.
Rates are still around 7%.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just was looking at that, right?
And prices, I mean.
And yeah,
Materials.
material prices have
Which
gone.
are gonna get worse.
right,
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
right.
Yeah.
Right, so, given where we are at 7:55, I'll share that presentation again, maybe just for any final thoughts on that. But I think I've covered most of the information there. I will say in terms of schedule, you know, we're looking at having a public facing draft really in June of at least the future land use map. But there's going to be, you know, we'll be adopting an entire new regional plan, but the land use, not everything in the plan is going to be updated because we just would do a regional plan revision. So it's going to be the land use chapter, the housing chapter, and then a few other things scattered throughout.
Mhm.
And we're looking at submitting that to the land use review board in September. But there will be in the islands, you know, a few opportunities for broader public engagement. I think we'll be doing some tabling as a way to just get the word about out and be more accessible to folks. And that's something that is built into the law. So I don't, maybe we'll come to Heroes Welcome. I'm not sure yet. We're still thinking. about it.
Okay.
But let's see. I guess any questions on the regional plan stuff? Well, sorry, one final thing.
go ahead.
Normally, I would say that I would be telling communities that we'll be back in touch because there is this decision the select board needs to make on opting into tier 1B. That's not an option for North Hero.
No.
So I'm not talking about
Okay.
that process.
I guess not a question, but it's leading into where we were to begin with is we think it's time to update our town plan, especially in light of Act 181, in light of the fact that there's a new regional plan coming out this year. And in light of the fact there's quite a few things that are outdated already in our existing town plan. I think it makes sense for us to start that process. And I think the way we'd like to go about it is if there's a grant available, so we could get some professional help in doing this. And I understand that maybe September timeframe is when grants might be available.
Yeah, they are planning to they were announced late this year, and there would be partly because there was revised grant management system, online grant management system, but they're gonna go back to the fall schedule this year. They were due March 31st this year. And the announcement will be May 1st. And then they are gonna go back to that September, November,
Cause, yeah.
sometimes.
All right, yeah, well-
September, October, not November, September, October timeline.
Yeah.
The
See,
date does sort of
Mhm.
fluctuate within that September.
Yeah, but I
October.
think that time frame works good for us as far as embarking on the effort of updating it. So,
I
so-
would think about that as, I mean, you might be able to start some work before the end of the year, but I would think of it as sort of like a fresh, like 2026 project.
Yeah.
Like you'd be able to like get going in
Yeah.
full swing, you know,
Yeah.
in January.
okay. Because, to address a lot of these things you brought up really starts with our town plan and,
Yep.
so good time
Yeah,
to
that's great.
take another look at it.
You know, South Hero recently did a plan, and Grand Isle just finished one up, so it's helpful to think about what your neighboring communities have done and what
Mhm.
those plans look like, and those plans were both done by NRPC, so if that's something that if you're interested in working with us, you can sort of get a feel for the type of work we've been doing
Yeah.
and what you might like as
Well,
a
I think
result.
we would definitely like to work with you. I know you were involved in the current one. So, okay, well, that's good. So
Okay.
sounds like we'll have to fill out an application at some point here and
Yeah, and we can help with that, and
Yeah.
so certainly, I'll have you on my list.
thank
You're
you.
already on my list.
Okay, great.
So, we'll be back in touch when it comes time to start getting that application together. And, it's really, especially for our municipal plan project, and when you're, the municipal planning grant program has the opportunity for towns that have 2,500 people or less to, select the RPC as your agent. And as such, then we would sort of work with the application. You don't have to go out to bid to hire us and things like that. And so, we'll help you with all of that. And the application is
Yep.
pretty straightforward for a town plan update. And so we're
Perfect.
not gonna need a ton from you, other than once they do release the guidelines, there's going to be statewide priorities, and we'll want to think about for a town plan update, what is that focus going to be? And I think that's going to be easy. You've already outlined that to some extent, relating it to Act 181, the new regional plan, housing, growth within your community. Where should that go? But that's the type of thing that we're going to talk about, and we're going to really want to connect it to the statewide priorities to make it compelling and competitive.
Yeah. And the big thing we're going to be looking for is community input and
Yes.
however we can encourage that.
Okay,
Yeah,
Yeah.
that'll be, I want to know how the people in North Hero feel about this and
Okay.
really get their input.
great.
You had 3 questions you wanted to ask, Andy.
Well, I had some other things I wanted to go over with Greta while she was here.
That's what I.
Yeah, okay, so before you.
I'm leading into.
Oh, thank you. But I just want, we're all set with this for now, everybody?
The town plan.
Okay, and we'll try to make this quick. What can you tell us about the updated FEMA maps? And I did go to that presentation, whatever it was, 2 or 3 weeks ago, which I thought was pretty useless. And I couldn't even get into the website to find the maps. Are there new maps for North Hero?
There are.
Okay, how do we see them?
Okay.
Have you been able to,
I haven't tried accessing them through North Hero. I just got that RPC.
write the NRPC one?
And I have them up if you want me to share.
Oh, yeah, okay, good. That's where I was gonna go.
Okay.
So I have not reviewed North Heroes maps to know, but one thing.
And we don't need to take a lot of time tonight. I just want to make sure they're available for us to look at. And I know the select board is particularly interested as well.
We don't have color printing
You don't?
downstairs,
Okay.
so.
Yeah.
it wouldn't
But
be
you
super
could send us a link to
But
it.
there's a link,
Yeah.
where you're gonna
If you
show
could
right now.
Send us the link, then
Oh, that'd be great.
we can put it up ourselves.
So I have the PDF. Here,
Well,
that's just an example of.
Yeah.
I also wanted to,
Oh, wait, sorry,
Oh,
that's not, oh, I
You're
can't
not
show you my,
concluding.
I can't show you my PDF, I guess.
Yeah, well,
Um,
we don't really need to go any further tonight. I just want to make sure that all of us, and actually anyone in North Hero who wants to look at the updated maps has the ability to do so.
so the link that Danielle just showed, though, you can navigate over to North Hero
Okay,
and see if you wanna show, that again.
or you can just send us a link.
yeah, just
Right.
send us the link
Yeah.
as
Oh,
a
okay.
start.
Right,
Um,
navigate over to North Hero, and in the table of contents, which what I was gonna
Uh-huh.
point out is it shows the existing floodplain, the new floodplain, and then it kind of highlights in a certain color, I can't remember, but the sort of the difference.
Okay.
And so if you can scroll down on the left side, Danielle, just so we can, I just want to point out what.
Oh, yeah.
So, oh, did he do this for Grand Isle? He did do it for Grand Isle. I don't know why it only says new special flood hazard Franklin. New special flood area Grand Isle, sorry. Okay, it's right there. So when you zoom in, you have the existing special flood hazard area, and then you have the new.
Mhm.
And I thought he did it with a different, maybe he took this, maybe this is the public facing draft and I'm remembering something different. Okay.
Yeah, that looks accurate for Blockhouse Point Road.
So, and so one thing I do want to point out is that the existing special flood hazard area that we're using is not, it's for planning purposes only.
Yeah.
Like there is no digitized flood hazard area map for the current regulatory floodplain. It exists just on those paper maps from 1970. And
Yeah.
our
Okay.
planners many years ago, sort of as best they could, made a digital GIS layer. But it is something that they did in our office and is just for planning purposes. And that's what's shown here as the existing special flood hazard area.
Ah,
Okay.
okay.
So there could be some minor discrepancies between the exact paper map and that, but it's for planning purposes only, kind of gonna show you,
Okay.
a different, the difference between.
And just big picture question, do you know if they changed the designated flood level for Lake Champlain, which is now at 102, I think?
I do not know the
Yeah.
answer to that.
Because that would make a big difference to us if they change that.
Yeah. I thought my early conversations with the state floodplain managers were that it would change.
I
but
had
have
heard that
not
at one
looked
point,
the-
yeah.
Have you seen, I have not looked at the maps to the level of detail. that they
No, I
did.
haven't.
Oh, well, enough, so I guess, Danielle, you have access and
Yeah.
people that wanna look at it, yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
send us a link to start. And, I realize it's still a work in progress, okay, moving on.
This is one thing I could just take a quick out. We've done a count of,
Get a map before FEMA doesn't exist.
Yeah, exactly.
uh,
That's mine will be solved. Because they have the.
so in North Hero. We've got a total of 57 structures added, a total of 107 removed
But
Or not
added to
cheap.
what?
to the floodplain.
Okay,
107 removed for
Oh.
a net loss of 50 structures that
Oh.
have been taken out of the floodplain.
Huh.
So
Oh,
that's
that's good.
total.
That's
But
good.
then
That's
we,
good.
so, and for single family dwellings, it's 30 were removed, 23 added, 53 removed.
Hmm.
But this sort of, this is something that we were able to do sort of to help us really hone in on towns with some, significant structures that were added to the floodplain. So there are some that were added, 23 added, and so that's a big deal for those 23 homes, but,
okay. But really good news for the 53. Okay, enough of that for now. So just real quickly, Greta, you may be aware, we're in the process, we did a major overhaul to our bylaws a year or so ago. We've got a few, what I consider minor changes that we're working on now, and I think we've just about finalized those. So we'll be doing some revisions to our bylaws. I want to run those past you before we move on. You've been very helpful in the past. So I just wanted to let you know that's coming, maybe after our next meeting. And so we'll have our public hearing, I'm thinking probably at, our June meeting. And then turn it over to the select board after that. But I just want to let you know, I want to have you folks review it. in
Do
between
we
there.
have to have a separate public meeting away from our, the planning commission?
It can be. It's got to be a separate hearing, but it can be combined. You can do both the same night, in other
Okay.
words, so yeah. Okay, so, just a heads up on that.
one thing I just wanted to say before we fully move away from the flood map.
Sure,
Comments are due May 16th. And so this is really a draft map. And so I would encourage folks to take a look at it. And well, I guess planning commissioners certainly, but select board members even. If there are areas that you're looking at that don't make sense to you, now would be the time to ask those questions and say, hey, this doesn't seem right. So I just wanted to point that out, that, try to take advantage of the opportunity to comment on them. If there's no comments, there's no comments, but.
right, okay.
Anyway, just want to point that out.
What's the comment period timeline again?
It's quick, May 16th.
That's it? That's the deadline?
That's it. Well, that's the work map review. I mean, I want to say that this is the first draft. And we were given till May 16th to get back to them. I think there probably will be other opportunities to comment on later drafts, but this is really that first map the comment, this first draft.
Okay.
And opportunity to comment. And I think probably things get a little bit more refined and, later on, but they wanna find any major issues as early as possible, so.
Okay.
Okay, that's it, sorry.
I'll I'll certainly take a look at it. And I know Carl is very interested in this too. He sat into that on that presentation. So we want to make sure we get Carl the link as well, Danielle. Yeah. Okay, real quickly, Greta, before you leave. Any issue from your standpoint if we were to change the title of certificate of occupancy to certificate of completion?
Yeah, I would recommend against that
Okay.
because Title 24, Chapter 117 specifically enables certificate of occupancy.
Yeah.
And I think it would, so you're as a minister, you're enabled to do that.
Yeah.
And I think if you call it something else, it would get confusing and misleading and not sort of conform directly to the statute.
Yeah, I thought that was the answer. We had quite a discussion that you were involved with during our most recent bylaw updates,
But
but the question was asked, so.
Yeah, you don't have to require COs for all types
Right.
of structures, though.
Okay,
So you could just require a CO for
residential.
residential, yeah.
Oh, okay, okay.
But the whole point of the CO, right, as opposed to the C, is it it's not certificate of completion, but
Certificate of
compliance, thank you. Is directly to relate to zoning compliance, right? So did what
Right,
is what was built, what the permit was for?
Yeah.
And largely, we're looking at setbacks when the purview of
Yeah,
zoning, when we're
exactly,
talking about
yeah.
that. In some cases, there might be a few other things, but
What we're not doing is certifying as to whether it's habitable.
right,
and that's the problem. That's why the question came up again.
Right.
If somebody gets a certificate of occupancy, they can say, oh, well, my heating system's good, the
I
wiring's
I
good.
see what you're,
Yeah.
like, the name is misleading.
That's the problem,
Right.
yeah.
In that, and that's a statutory issue.
Okay. All right, no, I just wanted your input and I appreciate it. And then the final thing and again, I know the answer to this, it's totally up to the town of North Hero, but just based on your opinion and what you think other municipalities are doing. If somebody appeals a zoning decision to the DRB and they win that decision or that appeal, should we refund their fees to bring it to that they paid to bring it to the DRB? Do you know if any other towns are
Do
doing that?
not know if any other towns are doing that. My inclination is to be like, no, because, I mean, the fees are what it costs and it's the process, but
Yeah.
some towns, I would have to do some research to know.
Okay, no, I just,
Yeah,
no, again, I know it's totally up to the town. I just wanted to know if
Yeah.
you'd run against that.
yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, okay,
Sometime, I feel like the LCT might have a survey of fees and so they might have a better,
okay,
know
well, we
what
can look
those
into
are.
that.
I
Okay.
haven't done a survey of fees
All right.
in
Um,
many years.
that's all. Just one more thing while you're here. Who's handling our services contract for the coming year? I know first year it was Catherine directly. I think it was Bethany last year. Just
Yeah,
because I want to be thinking about that again.
yeah, I know. I've been involved in those discussions with, Corinne had emailed me about the timing of it.
Yeah,
And I feel like I did respond to the appointment, I had a few questions for her and I don't think I heard back. Or maybe it was that I corresponded with Catherine and then I'm not sure what the communication between Catherine and Corinne was, but the ZA appointment is 3 years. And that was one of my questions was,
yeah. But
yeah.
that's not the issue. The issue is renewing the contract
Right.
for the next
and then
fiscal
the
year. Yeah.
contract is for a year.
Right,
And
so,
so they will have to renew it even though the appointment is
Yeah.
for 3 years.
so my concern, I just want to get that process started because we're gonna run out, this current contract runs out the end of June. You know, there's only so many select board meetings between now
All
and
right,
then. And we do have updated budgets for the ZA and the PC clerk and the DRB clerk. Just want to make sure you folks have the correct numbers.
Yep,
So if it's you, that's fine, or if it's Bethany. I just need to know who we're gonna be working with, and I want to get the process started.
I'm sending a note myself, because there's an email hanging out there and
Okay.
I'll have to see if I might have replied to Catherine and not to Corinne.
Okay. All right, that's all I had for you, Greta. And the rest of the meeting will go very quickly, trust me.
Great, so let me know if you have any other questions, but
Yeah.
these are extra still, or is
That's a George.
For George.
Oh,
George.
okay,
All of them does.
great. Okay,
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Warren and Bobby, yeah.
Thank you.
there you go.
Yes.
okay, well, Greta's packing up, so March ZA report. Which, we saw,
It's right there on the table.
yeah, but you emailed it to everybody, I looked at it, I didn't have any issues.
Certificates of occupancy, I think one certificate of compliance. One permit for a shed and one for a garage and one for some steps down to the shoreline. Pretty slow still for March, but April's picking up, so. Yeah. So I'll have
Okay.
more to report on next month.
All right, so unless anybody has any specific questions, I will move on. So consolidated bylaw updates, kind of touched on that. Between now and our next meeting, Danielle and I, and then I think with some assistance from Mike, we're trying to get all the pieces together, you know, in fact, if you look, the second page of the agenda packet is a draft report, and it kind of lists the items. The back page of the agenda.
There was a back page.
So. Yeah, and then, again, just the first pass, but if you look at the bullet points, those. Are the items I believe we approved. And that we want to include in our next updates. And Mike, you're gonna notice that certificate of occupancy is not on there because we never did end up taking any action. We talked about it a lot,
Oh, really?
yeah. So anyway, I wanted to just show the list. If anybody thinks we're missing something, let me know, but I think this is, these are all the points that we approve. So between now and the next meeting, between Danielle and Mike and I, we're gonna pull these all together into one document. Which I will bring, it will be part of the agenda for our next meeting. And if everybody is happy with that, we'll go ahead with the formal process of scheduling a public hearing. There's notifications that have to go out before that, so I'm tentatively thinking that we will. Approve this at our May meeting. You know, the document with all the changes, and that our public hearing will be at our June meeting. Tentatively, and then. Shortly after that, we'll turn it over to the select board and let them go through their process. So. That's where I think we are on that right now. So we don't need any action tonight, just wanted to give you a timeline. We talked about certificate of occupancy. This is a certificate of completion. I guess no action required on that. We talked about the bylaw updates. And we also talked about the town plan, which sounds like we'll apply for grants and it might kick in this fall, and that may be our big project next year is
Oh, yeah.
updating the town plan.
So when we're doing that, does somebody like Greta from regional, they come and work with us on?
Yeah, that's, the 2020 update, it was Greta Yeah, so it would be either Greta or somebody from,
Yeah.
NRPC.
Right.
I mean, there's other options out there too, but, they,
Sounds pretty good.
yeah, I'd
Yeah.
like to work with them,
Yeah.
cause we gotta conform to their regional plan as
Right,
well. So
exactly.
it makes a lot of sense to work with them, so.
So how did they do that before? Did they come to the meetings and?
I was not on the planning commission, but I think Bobby's the only one that,
Oh,
was around when
Yeah.
we did that. But yeah, they actually attended meetings and,
went
you
through
know,
the site.
help with,
Yeah.
yeah, and like I said, the big thing for me is gonna be the public input.
Yeah.
Whatever we can do to get people to participate.
Right.
And I don't know what a reasonable, I'd like to think we could get 20% or at least, but
Mhm.
that might be overly optimistic, but whatever we can do to get people to weigh in on it, I think it'd be good, so.
I think
You know,
that's
and,
what-
and Andy, one thing we might want to just spend a little time, either at the May meeting or June meeting, is kind of lay out a process of what we really want to do to move ahead with the town plan, because
Yeah,
some of it is being familiar with some of the documents, just the new regional planning document is going to be, that's
Yeah.
going to be really important. Even reviewing the current town plan, because I don't think we haven't done that in a long time.
right, we have not.
We
Yeah.
have not, and so we got to
Yeah.
know where we're, at least our baseline is.
So,
But
again,
we
my,
do-
my priority right now is to get these bylaw updates, out of
I
the
agree.
planning commission, so I can really start focusing on the town plan.
That'd be great.
Yeah, it'll be on the agenda again next month, so we can have more discussion and
Andy,
planning. on
what
it.
are you thinking of? Do you want, for instance, I can work with Danielle to put in the pages, the actual comments, rather than just a listing. For instance, you have a listing.
Oh, that's all, that's just the summary report. I have documentation for probably half of those items,
Those bullet points.
yeah.
Good.
Yes,
And maybe, Mike, maybe you and I and Danielle can schedule some time together. If you can put your hands on Word documents is what I'm looking for,
Right.
so we can consolidate it into one Word document.
exactly. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, that's what we want to do between now and our next meeting. So, yeah, you and Danielle and I can schedule something on that,
You have to schedule a couple of meetings.
whatever, whatever it takes. Okay, anybody have any commissioner announcements? Okay, guess I'm looking for that last motion.
Motion to dismiss.
I second it.
Good job.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so we'll see you in
Aye.
person next month, George, huh?
You will definitely see me in person. Yeah.
Perfect, all right, good night, everyone.
Take care, everybody.
See you, George.
Bye.
I had lots of this one too.